Oh, hey! How are you, friend? So good to see you, and I'm so glad you're here. You want a cup of coffee? I thought we could just sit down and have a chat. Come on. Act 2. Act 2 is going to make up the majority of your story, so we're going to be in Act 2 for a while. It's a 3-act story, 12 chapters. I don't know if you're kind of getting an idea of how structured this is. And it's really funny to me when people talk about creative people and how we don't like structure. I don't know about you, but if I don't have structure, I can't create. Like, I need something to build on. Otherwise, I just kind of go off the rails and talk about nothing at all. Even this episode was really, really challenging for me to try and record before I went, you know what? We're just going to stick with the structure that I'm familiar with because it's so easy. You have to find specificity. It makes the creation a lot sharper. It makes the decisions a lot easier to make. If you're feeling a little lost, give yourself some structure. Just a little thought to go with all of this. Okay, Act 2. Let's go. All right, let's talk about chapter 4. This is one of my absolute favorite chapters to write. It's also one of the most entertaining to read. And it's one of the most exciting to live through. The new world. All right, so you've made the decision that you are going to go on this journey and you are going to get there no matter what, and it's going to be worth it. And then you walk into the training room with all of the other tributes getting ready to go into the arena, and you see what your competition is really like. Or you walk into your first audition and you go, oh, these people are all so much more talented. I think along the lines of Aberman and Mighty Ducks 2, where he's talking about the Iceland team and he goes, oh, we can't beat them. They're bigger, stronger. They have facial hair. It's that feeling, but it's also making all of the new friends and being so overwhelmed with all of the magic at Hogwarts as you walk into the Great Hall for the first time. This is where you get to introduce a plethora of new characters. This is where you really start to realize how little you know about what you just got yourself into. It's a very entertaining chapter as a reader whenever you get to this moment in someone's else's story where you go, oh, sweetheart, you really don't know what you're doing, do you? If you look around you and you know you have no idea what you're doing, you're in chapter 4. If you're in a place where you're meeting all of these new people and your curiosity is insatiable and your mind is going 1,000 miles a minute and you're scared to death and you're looking for a mentor, someone who can kind of guide you down this path, welcome to chapter 4. You are in a whole new world and you're just starting out on your journey. You're the doe-eyed ingenue who just showed up to New York with 2 bags and a heart full of dreams. It's going to be a little bit of a rough ride from here, but you're in such an exciting place. If you've already been through this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Chapter 4 is also where you have all of your fun misadventures. You can introduce your comic relief. It's so much fun and it's so eye-opening. It might have been when you went to the library and checked out 15 different books on the same subject and just tore through them. This is where you go to Google and you go, how do I start a podcast? You'll notice as you go through life that sometimes you're living more than one story at once, and you're in chapter 3 in one of them, in chapter 8 in another part of your life. That's always a fun little thing. If this is the chapter you're in, this is where it is so important to be careful who you trust, to find mentors. I've talked a lot on this show about how important it is to find mentors and people in your chosen field or your chosen arena of life that will be kind of pace setters for you, that you can check in with and they can keep you accountable and give you advice on their stories. This is where it's important to find that person. And if you have that person in mind, or a list of people in mind, and this is kind of where you're at, or you have gone through this chapter already, write down their names and check back in with them, because they are still so important to your story. They're the ones that are going to help you find your way from point A to point B. They're your Gandalf, as it were. If at any point in this structure you go, I haven't gotten to this point yet, I want you to put your imagination cap on and write down what you think is going to happen at this point. It's probably not going to go that way, because if you want God to laugh at you, tell him your plans. But I just want to kind of get this idea in your head that you can plot a path for yourself. You can make a plan for how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. And it's always going to change. You're always going to have curveballs thrown at you and plot twists and, bugbears that come out of the woods. But every time you hit an obstacle and you make that chapter 3 decision of it's worth it, you're going to be able to redirect your path, and you're going to be able to find a way to get there anyway. If you're in this chapter, this is what I want to most encourage you to do. Embrace it. Lean into the I don't know what I don't know. Be insatiably curious. Seek out mentors. I've said this I don't know how many times on this show already, and we're only on the 5th episode. Seek out people in your field who can be pace setters for you. Seek out people that you can pick their brain on their journey, their experiences, learn from their mistakes so you don't have to make the rookie ones. Do Google searches. Check out books from the library. Get yourself into a masterclass. Whatever it takes, be a sponge. Because this is where your story really gets going, and you are going to need every single bit of help and information you can get as you continue down this journey. Take a second, write down what chapter 4 looked like for you, if you know you've already lived through it, what it looks for you right now, what questions you have. Make a list of people that might mentor you or people that you want to take the journey with if you're in this right now. Or a list of questions that you have about what this journey looks like from here on out, and start to make that plan. And if you haven't gotten there yet, write down what you're most excited about when you get there. Because what I really want you to focus on is how exciting this chapter really is. Chapter 5. Oof. This is always the hardest one for me to write because it can literally be anything. And in a lot of story structures, this section can be anywhere from a few pages to the majority of the book. It's the middle cycle. This is where you get a little more exposition. You might have flashbacks, right? Where you're kind of back in that chapter 2 mindset of, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I haven't failed, but I feel like I'm going to. And here are all the reasons why. And you start to learn a little bit more about your supporting cast. Maybe you get a little closer with the love interest. Maybe you learned something about your mentor that was a little bit unexpected. It's also where we kind of go down the path of plan A of whatever your goal is. And we might have a few victories. We might defeat the first monster that we come across. This is where Percy Jackson meets Medusa and they manage to get away from her, and that's all well and good. But now we know that we're going to have more problems like this. And maybe the confidence of the main character swells. Maybe the confidence of the main character slips a little bit. We're starting to go back to some of our old habits, and you're getting tired, right? This is where a lot of us find ourselves. I haven't really failed, but I also haven't really succeeded. I've done a couple of things that were getting me toward where I want to go, but I just feel like I've kind of stalled out. This is where a lot of stories, when I'm writing them, kind of go to die, because I don't know how to get through this particular chapter. A lot of characters in chapter 5 get pulled down a path of distractions, or they start to trust the wrong person, or they get a little cocky, or they just are tired. If you're in that place, I want you to write down what those things are, what's going on. Are you trusting the wrong person? Are you being pulled back into something that's toxic for you? Are you making excuses for yourself? Oh boy, I am preaching to the choir right now. This is where I've been for a good minute of just going, what did I make this decision for? What did I decide this was worth it for? Like, why did I think that? This is where the doubts start to creep in. Write down what's going on. Okay? Or write down, because a lot of people are afraid of this too. If you haven't gotten to this point, write down, this is going to go back to your dread and your villain and all of this kind of stuff. This is where the conflict starts to kick into your story. What do you think is going to stall you out or distract you? One of the reasons it's so important to identify what those are ahead of time, so you can train yourself, you can make the decisions of how you're going to handle that when you come upon it. This is where you might start sword fighting training with your mentor when you're sitting down for the night. This is where you learn the stories of your mentors and you say, what mistakes did you make that I can avoid? You know, what's your story? How would you suggest that I move past this? Chapter 5 is tough. And it gets tougher. All right, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a spoiler. Chapter 6 isn't fun. But you have to get past the sinking sand pit of chapter 5 in order to get to the end of the story, right? We want to keep that forward momentum. All right, take a second and write down what that might be for you. I want to challenge you to take a big risk or do something that you have to rally yourself to do. This is the chapter where it's so important to take ownership of your story. Not that you haven't done that before, but you're going to have to push a little bit harder. You're going to have to dig a little bit deeper. Another name for chapter 5 that I've kind of given it in my own writing is the wall. The wall is where the main character starts to hit these internal dilemmas. It's where they start to wrestle with their dread. It's where the villain of the story starts to figure out how to get to them. It's where the thing that they thought was a victory turns out to be a little bit of a misstep. This is where things start to feel a little bit dangerous. And it leads us into the next chapter, chapter 6, failure. Chapter 6 is the halfway point of your story, and it's the first real low point of your character arc. It's called failure. This is where the main character takes a big risk and it just doesn't work out, or where the villain gets the better of them, or where they react to something in a way that is grossly inappropriate and gets them in a lot of trouble. They may be tempted to completely give up on the mission. They may be captured. They may be stalled. They may run out of money. Whatever that circumstance is, it may be something that's completely out of their control. They just realized that they walked into a trap. And it's at this point where it is so important for the main character to have mentors, to have companions, to have someone who can bust them out. Sometimes the main character can do it by themselves. But in my experience, and if you're in this place in your life where you know that you took a big risk or you took a very long walk in the wrong direction, it's very important to find a guide to help you get back on track. Chapter 6 is another moments chapter. And I want to really highlight that because I want to encourage you with the thought that failure is something that is momentary. It is not something that defines you. If you've made a mistake, congratulations, you're a human being. If you've had tragedy strike, it's a storm that you will get through. And you will come out on the other side stronger. This is a hard chapter to live through for the main character. A lot of times because they end it feeling utterly defeated and usually very hard on themselves. And it's hard for them to see a way forward. And that is where chapter 7 comes in. One of the most important things about writing any good character is having them learn some hard lessons. And I know that you've learned some hard lessons throughout your life. I want you to acknowledge yourself for that. You did that. You went through the hard stuff and came out on the other side as a better person in whatever arena that is. Good for you. And I want to add a challenge to that acknowledgement. Always keep that spirit of, I'm going to learn what I need to learn from this set of circumstances, no matter how hard it is. I'm not going to let it defeat me. I'm going to let it mold me into a better, stronger, wiser, kinder person. So, you've made it to chapter 7. If a theme hasn't started to emerge by now, I would say go back through the homework that you've already done and circle any words or any phrases, anything that has been repeating itself. Take that highlighter. It will start to jump off the page at you. That's your theme. And usually that theme, as I've said before, is tied to what is holding you back. If you can identify what that is, you've already done 50% of what you need to do to get past that. Identifying what the problem is, what the pivotal thing is the greatest challenge of your life. You may also start to notice that the thing you want and the thing that is holding you back, it's like two sides of the same coin. Have you ever heard the allegory about the two wolves? And that there's one wolf that represents all of the negative aspects of your life. Your fear, your anxiety, your tendency to be hateful or hurtful, whether that's intentional or not, your prejudices, your bad habits. And that's one of the wolves. And the other one is your higher self. And it is all of the great things that you want to do. And it is all the love that you have to give and all the creativity that you bring to the table. Which wolf wins, ultimately? You know the answer? It's the one you feed. Coming out of chapter 7 is like stepping out into the first day of spring after a winter that has been way too long and way too harsh and way too cold and way too dark, and you have been super depressed. And all of a sudden you walk outside and you feel that first warm breeze, and you know that everything is about to change again. If you are anywhere between the beginning of chapter 5 and the end of chapter 7, I want to encourage you, keep going, no matter how hard it is. Remember that decision you made in chapter 3? That it was worth it? It's gotta be worth it. And it is. You just got to keep making that decision. Sometimes it is one breath at a time, but you are the main character of your story. And if you want to get to that happy ending, you have to go through the tough spots. And we're about to have a really good chapter. So strap yourselves in, write down the lessons that you have learned so far, and then we're going to get into chapter 8. Okay, take 3 deep breaths with me. 1 to release all that tension in your body. 1 to clear your mind, because we have just had a big journey. And 1 more to focus on what we're about to do. Great job for making it this far. All right, chapter 8, redemption. Redemption. I love this chapter so much. It can be as short as you want it to be. It can be as long as you want it to be. This is when you finally start to figure out how to get past your obstacles. This is where you walk away from that toxic relationship. This is where you have found a way to move past the place where you have been stuck for so long. You haven't gotten to your happy ending yet, but you're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you have determined that no matter what comes in your way, that you are going to keep pushing and you're going to make it. If you've made it this far, you're going to make it to the end. If you're in this chapter right now, I want you to write a letter to yourself in whatever place you were in before where you felt like it wasn't possible. And I want you to share what you've learned with people that you think might be in that similar space. If that's just typing up a Facebook post, whatever your big lesson was, your big takeaway from the last chapter was, share that. You're going to be living on that for a really long time, and it's going to be so amazing. We still have 3 more chapters to go, and the next one is not fun either. Because as we get toward our happy ending, when we get toward the end of the journey, with any good story, the obstacles get bigger. But you are already stronger because you've already come through something that tested everything you had. So you ready? We're going to do it again, just a little bit bigger. If you're in this chapter, I just want to say that you are not alone. Okay? You're gonna make it through this. The defining trait of chapter 9 is an overwhelming feeling of there is no way that we could possibly win against this. If you wrote down a villain, or you wrote down your worst fear at the beginning of this is where that comes into your story. And I don't want to scare you if you haven't gotten to this place, because it's very likely that you won't have to deal with this. Not specifically. 90% of the time, our worst fear is just our brain trying to protect us from getting hurt. But if your worst fear has come true, if you've worked as hard as you could, and you have overcome so much, and you thought you were finally getting to your happy ending, and then something came out of nowhere and took everything, and you thought there is no way that I'm ever going to be able to get past this. You're in chapter 9. You're almost at the end of the story. And a lot of characters can tend to turn this chapter into a tragic ending. I want to encourage you not to do that. Remember why this is worth it. Remember what's really at stake. It's your life. It's your happiness. It's the dream that you had at the beginning of your life. When the inciting incident happened, it started this ball rolling, and you weren't quite sure if you wanted to go on this path, and then you made the decision. All of that wasn't for nothing. So if you're in this chapter and you feel like there is no way you can get back up again, you can. You have to, because otherwise you don't get your happy ending. You can do this. You've learned the lessons you need to learn. You have the mentors, you have the friends, you have the inner strength. Whether you feel like it or not, you do. So go ahead and flip the page. I'm not even going to ask you to write anything down for this one, unless you really feel like you need to, because chapter 10 is the battle plan. This is the scene in all of the war movies or all of the fantasy novels where the council gathers around a big oak table in a dark lit room, and they get out the map and they say, we are outnumbered on every side and there is no way we're gonna win this, but this is what we're gonna try to do anyway. Ooh, are you getting chills? Because I am. Notice that it's the council. You are going to need to call the cavalry on this one. You are going to need to call on the people that you can count on no matter what. And you are going to need to dig down deep into yourself. Forget your fear. Forget what failures have happened before. Forget any distractions. Focus on the goal. This is the final stretch of the marathon, and you're going to have to be strategic. Okay, so if you're in this chapter, I want you to make a very detailed list of the things you know you have got to do to get from where you are now to your happy ending. Okay? And I want you to call the people that you are accountable to and make a plan. Ooh, you are already out of the dark because you've got a plan. And you're gonna come through on the other side victorious. I believe in you. I'm so excited. Okay, you ready? Let's get into chapter 11. Chapter 11 is the showdown. Chapter 11 is the comeback montage. It's the final battle. It's where you put your plan into action and it works. Chapter 11 is that moment when you're standing on the battlefield and you are looking out at everything that you've already come through, and you're looking at the biggest challenge you've ever faced. It is entirely natural to feel a whole new level of fear. Remember when we were talking in chapter 2 about how your brain freaks out whenever it encounters something that's new or different or unfamiliar because it labels it as dangerous? That has continued to happen throughout this story, but now is that moment where it happens more than ever. When that fear happens, this is the moment where you look behind you and you realize you've got this because you have backup. Part of the reason for that is because you and your experiences that you've come through, your backstory, all of the challenges that you faced, all of that has culminated in this moment. You've come through all the rest. This is the final push. This is the sprint to the end of the marathon. You got this. And even if you feel like you don't got this, you've got your counsel behind you. Your mentors, your friends, your companions, people that started out maybe as enemies and you've made peace with them, or at least they're your allies now. You can go into this moment with a confidence like you would not believe. This is your moment to shine. This is where you look the biggest monster you've ever faced in the eye and you say, it's my turn. And I may not be able to do it alone, but I can do it. And I will do it. And nothing, especially not you, is going to stop me. Do you feel empowered? Because you should. If this is the chapter you're in, I envy you so much, because I haven't gotten there yet. This is still one of those moments that I'm looking forward to, and I'm going, oh, that's going to be such a great day. And I don't know what it's going to look like, because I don't know what exactly my chapters 9 and 10 are going to look like. And that's okay. If you have already gone through this chapter, please write down what this moment was for me and revel in that. Remember how we were saying that you may live through this story more than once in your lifetime? If you know you've come through this moment before, take the confidence of that you can do it again. You can do it again. If you haven't, you're in the same boat as me. And what we're going to do is we're going to write down a letter to ourselves in that moment, so that when you know you get there, you can tell yourself, no matter how afraid you feel, you can do this. And it's worth it. And nothing is going to stop you. There's only one chapter left in this story. We call this the denouement. This is the final wrapping up of your story. This is where you get your happy ending. For some of us, this is where we find something that we weren't necessarily expecting as our happy ending. Along the road of life, there are a lot of plot twists, and we lose things, and we start to learn that different things are important to us. This story, it may take your entire life to unfold, or you may live it out over and over and over again. And I don't want to guarantee you that your life is going to look exactly like you want it to when you get there, because how many of your favorite heroes from literature ended up with the happy ending that they really wanted at the beginning? This journey changes you. It's going to break you in some ways. It's going to give you skill sets and lessons that you never saw yourself learning. You're going to make friends that you never thought you would make. And you're going to make enemies that you never thought you would make either. You're going to have to be very honest and get very uncomfortable with yourself. And sometimes the people that you want to go easy on you are going to show you some tough love. And that is going to be a hard day, but it's for your good. Trust the process of this story as you go through it. Because no matter what your ending really ends up looking like, whether it is exactly what you wanted at the beginning or whether it has changed and it's something different, something better, can you imagine what an interesting story your life is going to be? When I think about, I'm a little emotional. When I think about what my happy ending is, one of the things that goes at the top of the list is that I want to have an interesting story where I was able to overcome the things about myself that hold me back. My fear of disappointing other people, my anxiety about being mediocre or not being good enough to do what I really want to do. I want to have overcome that. I think about where I want to end up being. I think about the relationships and the family that I want to have. I think about the world that I want to travel in, and the people I want to meet, and the conversations that I want to have. And that's a more vague explanation. I do have a very specific happy ending that I keep very close to my chest because it's very personal to me. But as long as I have an interesting story at the end of the day, and I have overcome those things about myself, and I have traveled, and I have met people, and I have made a positive impact on the world through how I treated people and how well I did my job and how I empowered the people around me and the people that come after me to do the same, then I will have attained my goal. Your life is such an incredible story. I hope you realize that about yourself. I hope that as you look at the nitty-gritty details of what you've come from, what you've come through, and the decisions you've made and the lessons you've learned, I hope that it empowers you. I hope that you feel unstoppable. Because, friend, you are unstoppable. If you make your mind up to keep moving forward, even if you fail, even if the world throws all kinds of plot twists at you, you will keep moving forward. Keep your mentors close. Keep learning. Keep putting one step in front of the other. And you will have the most incredible story you can imagine. And there you have it. Guys, I know this has been a long journey. I want to thank you for coming on it with me. I'd love to hear some little tidbits that you extrapolated from your story, maybe a lesson, maybe a chapter that was really pivotal in your story, maybe a mentor that taught you something. Whatever it is that you got from this, I would love to hear it. Head to our Facebook page, Coffee Friends Today. We're on Facebook, and leave us a post, leave us a message. Tell us a little bit about your story, your life story. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. I'm so excited for you to come back and hear what's coming down the pipeline. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Coffee Friends Today. I'm your host, Marsha Faith Harper. Hope you had a great time today, friend. I know I did. And I'll see you next time. Ciao.